India's international border in the northeast is tense again. There's fighting in Myanmar, and it's spilling into the Indian state of Mizoram. India shares a 1,600-kilometer-long border with Myanmar. The country saw a military coup 2 years back. The generals are facing an armed resistance, and they're cracking down hard. Last month, they launched airstrikes on militia groups. Some locals said these strikes violated India's sovereignty. An influential Mizo youth organization in the state of Mizoram said that there were some damages on the Indian side as well. There is no official confirmation, but off-the-record officials say these airstrikes have been going on for a while. There is no denying that the conflict in Myanmar is spilling into India. The region is tense and India is walking a tightrope here. New Delhi has been cautious in its diplomatic relationship with the military junta. 3 reasons. Number 1 is the security implication of a flare-up in Myanmar. The border, is porous, stretching across states like Arunachal Pradesh, Nagaland, Manipur and Mizoram. There are multiple armed groups in action. Any escalation in tension will have a direct bearing on India's security. Then there is the refugee crisis. People fleeing Myanmar end up in India, especially the Rohingya. They're an ethnic minority. They faced persecution and a genocide a few years back. The United Nations says there are around 16,000 Rohingya refugees in India. The government estimates there are more than 40,000. And the third reason is China. China has been eyeing and increasingly playing a big role in Myanmar. It is arming the generals and lapping up infrastructure projects. India must remain in play through its developmental projects and engage with the junta while also pushing for a return to democracy. Like I said, it is a tightrope walk. And it's a much more difficult and nuanced approach than the Western one. The West has announced sanctions and issued statements. The United States, the United Kingdom, Canada, Australia, they've all sanctioned firms linked to the military in Myanmar. The US has even targeted the military-approved election commission in the country. It has sanctioned current and former military generals, mining enterprises, and energy officials. For the first time, America has also slapped sanctions on the Myanmar oil and gas enterprise. On the UK's target list are companies supplying aviation fuel to the military. British Foreign Secretary James Cleverly said, and I'm quoting, "Our sanctions are meticulously targeted to deliver maximum impact, reducing the military's access to finance, fuel, arms and equipment." This is from Britain. Australia too has announced sanctions for the first time against the military. It has held 16 people responsible for what it calls egregious human rights abuses. Canberra has imposed sanctions on 2 major military-controlled conglomerates. These 2 groups dominate Myanmar's economy. But who is being hurt by these sanctions? The junta is tightening its iron grip, and it is the people who are suffering. I have some numbers. More than 2,900 people have been killed in the junta's crackdown on dissent. 1.5 million people have been displaced. 40,000 homes have been burned. 8 million children are no longer in school in Myanmar. 15 million people are facing a food shortage. This is according to the United Nations. And this is not all. As we speak, a brutal civil war is raging in many parts of the country. Myanmar was earlier known as Burma. It is home to more than 50 million people. It became an independent country in 1948, and since then it has seen rampant ethnic strife and violence. It has witnessed one of the longest-running civil wars in the last 70 years. 2 years back, there was another coup. It was led by the army chief, General Min Aung Hlaing. The military junta toppled the government of Aung San Suu Kyi. They seized control of the country. And this is what Myanmar looked like yesterday. Empty streets, shuttered shops. Why? Because it was part of a silent strike. A strike called by pro-democracy activists. They urged the public to stay indoors, to protest against the coup on its 2nd anniversary. Outside Myanmar, the protests were not so silent. The million-dollar question is, when will the next elections be held? The ruling junta says the country is facing quote-unquote unusual circumstances. Of course it is. They've extended the state of emergency by 6 months. What does that mean? It means that elections which were scheduled for August this year will most likely be delayed again. And whenever the elections are held, it's safe to say that Aung San Suu Kyi will have no role to play. Her party, the National League for Democracy, won the last election. When the coup took place in 2021, Suu Kyi was put under house arrest. Now she's serving a 33-year jail sentence. This is after 18 months of trial on 19 charges. Also after she defended the very same generals for the Rohingya genocide. She stood up for them at the International Court of Justice. Now they've jailed her. What about her party? The junta made sure that the party is also destroyed. Thousands of its members are in jail and those that escaped are in hiding. 4 activists were executed last year. And these were the first cases of death penalty in Myanmar in the last 30 years. The military has also announced new rules for political parties, rules that favor a military proxy filled with former generals, the party that Suu Kyi defeated in the last 2 elections. Myanmar has plunged into chaos. The generals are fighting on multiple fronts. And for the people, the road to democracy, the road to an election booth and to peace is a long and arduous one.